Hello, I'm Maryne Hachey, psychic medium, intuitive healer. Welcome to Chronicles of a Medium. During this series, I will be talking about what it is to be a medium and sort of my new book on Chronicles of a Medium. Just walking you through kind of like my personal journey into mediumship and start to finish. Well, it's not finished because I'm still here. But where I'm going and that sort of thing. So, what is mediumship? Basically, I am a spirit communicator. I'm kind of like the translator from the dead to the living. And so how that works is messages come through using all my senses. Some mediums are different. Everyone's different. And it looks different for everyone in the sense on how spirits communicate. It also has to do with the medium's confidence and skill set. I am a natural born medium, so it comes very easy for me to communicate with the deceased, and they come through in various different ways. For example, depending on the spirit's intelligence, meaning what they've learned on the other side to communicate, they can tell me how they've died, what they did for a living, who they belong to, and other pertinent personal information and personality traits through sometimes symbolism. So they'll show me different objects like an apple tree. So they had an apple tree in their yard. They like apples, they enjoyed the spring, etc., etc. Other ways, I physically feel them. So I will go through the sensations of having a heart attack or being stabbed or being shot or struck in the head. It just depends on how the deceased person has passed on. I deal in more of murders, suicides, that sort of thing. But other mediums, do more natural deaths or whatever their comfort zone is. This is just what I've worked up to and through. So in the beginning, when I first was like a baby medium, literally as far as I can remember, my earliest memory, I was in a high chair and a deceased man came through in the kitchen of my godmother's house. And he was, to me, terrifying. He was playing with his teeth, putting his teeth in and out of his mouth. He was doing all these antics, trying to get me to laugh. But for me, that was like traumatizing. And I remembered I didn't like going to this house. When I got a little older, and our family really loves to share ghost stories. So I was telling my mom about the time that I remembered being in a high chair in this woman's house. And as an adult, I had never met this woman. It wasn't a discussion about my godmother because we were very distant. We weren't close to my father's side of the family and that sort of thing. So once I relayed all the things that came through, my mom was dumbfounded. She's like, how could you possibly remember that? And it's very simple explanation. The soul has memories, and it's on a cellular level. So these images and expressions and energy was implanted and left such a strong impression that I remembered as an adult. And this is true for any aspect of mediumship as you grow up and you experience things in life. Things are implanted on a cellular level, and this is where I believe some addictions and other bad habit forming things happen. You'll have to forgive me because sometimes my brain works faster than my mouth, and so I get lost in the stuttering. But it's very exciting because when I look back on where I was and where I am now, everything that I've experienced has led me to this moment in my mediumship. And it was almost like a training ground of life. So when I was younger, I used to be so afraid of death, like very afraid. And yet all these dead people came through without trying. And that's the other thing about me personally, is I do not call on the deceased. My guides and angels will escort them in if there's a message for someone or if I can help in some way. 9 times out of the 10, I get random spirits coming, and I do ask them to bring me their living, because it's not always up to me or the other medium or whatever to escort them to the other side. Clearly they have some unfinished business and need to communicate their passing in some way, shape, or form. So they come to mediums. So in the beginning of my mediumship career, I went to school for palliative care nurse's aide back in the early 90s, after the birth of my second son. So 91-ish, I think, 92. And I worked in a palliative care hospital in the Alzheimer's ward, so caring for the dying. And everyone seemed to always die on my shift, which would mean that I would have to prepare the body for the morgue. And yes, it's true. You do have to prepare the body. Sponge bath, changing sheets, changing clothes, that sort of thing. And then positioning the body properly. So that was a part of my job. Now, during that process of, hands-on experience, it never really bothered me in the sense that I was afraid of what I was doing. I always tried to ignore the spirits that came through, because they most of the times lingered around. And the other interesting thing is not all spirits linger. Like, when they're done here, they're done. So they take off and, go elsewhere and go on to their soul journey on the other side. So as my life progressed, so did my comfort level with death and experiencing, large amounts of trauma in my family surrounding murder and death and suicide and so many things, which were a part of my training ground. Back then, I didn't know. I was just living life and going through the traumas. And in fact, after a close family member's incarceration, I went through a period of about 5 years of just drama and trauma. And, I had a little PTSD, pardon me. And it was very, very much hard to get through. But that didn't stop spirits from coming, and back then I would do readings and that sort of thing for people I knew and close family members and that sort of thing. So I wasn't really comfortable completely embracing my gifts, yet I couldn't escape them. And then after my marriage ended, I actually before then, pardon me, I started to really embrace my gifts more. It was apparent to me that I couldn't ignore them anymore. I mean, my kids always seen spirits. We always had some sort of activity in the house. In fact, all growing up, there was never a moment in time where there weren't spirits coming through. And like I said, it was a training ground and very interesting. And so the moment I started really stepping into my own personal power as a medium and as a woman, and embracing who I was, more and more, it became apparent to me that I was working for the deceased and a very specific niche of people who had been murdered or who had died a suspicious death. And it had to happen in a sequence of events, because if it started that way, I might not have been as comfortable, and I needed to learn as much as I could during my lifetime to get to the place where, okay, I can be around this energy. It doesn't overwhelm me. I can navigate it and that sort of thing. Pardon me. Yeah, so then from there, life started changing very quickly for me in the sense of the types of readings that I was doing. I was doing more professional readings on a full-time basis, and they would all be someone died of suicide, someone was murdered, someone died of a suspicious death. And it was escalating in traumatic events. Like it was, crazy, the people that were coming through. I remember this one fellow, his name was Ryan, and I'll never forget him. And this is where I first discovered that I actually was really working for them, and they understood what I was saying. And it's not that I didn't understand my gifts, it's that the connection that I started to understand of how powerful it was around this time. And so over a period of 3 nights, this gentleman kept coming to me, and he would commit suicide. And each night he would give me more and more details, which, as you can imagine, were super traumatizing. So I'd get up and I'd write them down, and, oh, I wonder, who this is, what it is. And the reason why I knew it was a vision is because it was so detailed. There was a lot of information, and I was very present in the moment of, it was very interactive, And so with the dream, it's kind of random circumstances. It doesn't make a lick of sense. And, you kind of go through that process. So then this guy on the 3rd night, when he succeeded with his final moments, I said to him, look, you have to bring me your living or stop doing this, because I don't know how to help you. You can't just come to my dreams every night and, kind of haunt me and upset me, because this was traumatizing. I don't want to watch you die 3 nights in a row. And on the last night, I'll never forget, there was this big spirit that wouldn't let me in to further investigate. Well, the previous 2 nights, I'd been in to his apartment and, really was able to take detailed notes of everything. He told me why he was committing suicide and all these details. So weeks passed, and he respected my wishes. He didn't come back through. Well, this woman booked in, and she said, she was also a psychic, but was too close to the situation, asked me if I could come to her house. Normally, I don't like to go to people's houses because it's just, not safe, and it's just creepy. So I agreed, and I'm also directionally challenged, but it was like I was in a trance, and I drove right to her house. And I was kind of unsettled because she was standing outside waiting for me. And I was like, oh, I just kind of said a little prayer, call on the angels, and I was like, okay, I'm here for a reason. Let's just get this done. And so when I walked in, blew me away, is there on above the fireplace was this great big memorial picture. And I mean, huge memorial picture of her brother, Ryan. And the moment I saw it, I got goosebumps, and I was like, holy shit, this is legitimately the biggest moment and memorable, which is why I remember his suicide so detailed. Because the other thing is, spirit will kind of erase the details, because I can't carry everybody's information around, because it would wear me out as a medium and my longevity would be compromised. So only significant learning lessons do I remember. And there's a few of them over the years. So anyway, I was able to relay to the sister, details surrounding the days leading up. And the other interesting thing is because I journaled them, I was able to date the 3 days prior to his suicide. So he was coming through as a living being, contemplating his death. This was what he was going to do. And then on the 3rd day, he'd actually committed suicide. So That was really profound too. And I also believe that if I was meant to intervene in any way, shape, or capacity, Spirit would have opened that door to allow me to intervene and, kind of help him. And I have helped people in the past not commit suicide because it wasn't their time. So after that moment, it was really profound, and it really stuck in my head that, just the level of respect that I had, not just for my gifts, but how spirits communicate and the traumas and dramas that they go through, and differentiating between living energy and deceased energy was a really powerful lesson for me, even as a medium. And I still learn. Listen, we're all learning right till the day we die. We continue this, evolving door of knowledge, and you just have to be open to it. You can't just say, oh, I'm a professional at this and that's it, cap off. You have to be open to learning more and experiencing things. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. But yeah, I definitely do a lot of work now as a true crime consultant, and oddly enough, I also do object reading, and I'd not realized I was doing that pretty much my whole life. So after, I'll just digress a little bit. After that suicide, I started getting more suicides, but then I started getting some suspicious deaths. And then I started working as a trauma scene cleanup, and which was ironically weird. How I got that is I actually was hired as a business manager because I was not, sorry, there's a spirit behind me. I was not wanting to fully embrace or trusting my gifts at that point that I would have enough clientele to support me and that sort of thing. So I was just kind of, do I take the plunge? Do I not take the plunge? And so I landed this job as a business manager for a trauma scene cleanup, which I'd never even gotten into the office. I was always in the field for the short time that I was there. Although it felt like a long time, it was probably a couple months, so not a significant amount of time. But the amount of stuff that I learned from there, I did, some cleanup for natural deaths. We did some hoarding, and then I did a shotgun suicide, which was crazy, which is all in my book. And then I did, a couple murder scenes and missing people. So it was a very profound experience for me to be able to do that, and cleaning someone else's blood after, a murder scene is very humbling when you're sitting there in a hazmat suit in the middle of the night in a dark alley on your hands and knees sopping up blood so that the rest of the community isn't traumatized by walking over pools of blood, which I had never thought for a moment about until this time. What happens when a body dies at home is really sad because the family is left to clean that. When the coroner comes and takes the body, that's the extent of their services. They don't clean up the mess. They don't tell you what to do. The family is left with this loss of their loved one, and then you have to clean up the mess. So this is where it's a valuable service for trauma scene cleanups or biohazard cleanups or whatever they want to name themselves, come in and do. So I think it's just a really deep, profound, different side of compassion to offer these services. And so that's why I was doing it in the first place, is because I felt like it was such a, valuable service to offer to people. So from there, it was interesting that how my clients changed, that it seemed to draw in people that had died of suspicious deaths. And even some spirits don't know that they've passed on, which was, I've done readings for years. At this point, I'd been exposed to it my whole life. So I always thought that I would know the difference between the dead and the living. And again, it surprised me that the intelligence of this spirit was still very much, she believed that she was still here. So when her mom booked in, it had only been 3 days since she had passed on. So, that she hadn't accepted yet that she'd passed on. So the mom sat down and, the daughter was telling me about the dynamics of their relationship, and it was all very true. And then she said to me, I have to just stop you for a second and let you know that she passed away 3 days ago. And as she said that, the body or the energy of her daughter kind of zipped back past me, because she was right here talking to me. And then she just kind of went into the background, and she put this hood on and like this sweatshirt, put her hood on, and then she started telling me, oh, right. So she was remembering on a soul level how she actually passed. And so she was relaying these things. And the hood was very significant because that's what they cremated her in. And I was dumbfounded. And it was very interesting too, because after the reading, she kept coming back with more and more information, but I didn't want to overwhelm the mom. I also wanted to respect boundaries for her and for me. And the spirits have to also respect my boundaries as their communicator. Make an appointment, don't bombard me. And so I don't like to harass people. And if they felt inclined to rebook, then I would book them in accordingly if I was led to. So this spirit actually went to my oldest son, who is also a very gifted medium, but doesn't like to embrace it. And he saw her in the hood and said, Mom, he woke me up in the middle of the night. He called me and said, one of your friends came to see me. I don't know what she wants, but could you just do what she wanted? So I kind of just said to her, hey, it's not cool to go to my son. You have to stay within this boundary. If your mom wants to hear from me, she'll book in. Shortly after that, I got an email request from Facebook saying that she wanted to add me to Facebook. And I was like, oh, well, maybe the mom had the password and was just adding me onto her Facebook. So at that point, I screenshot it and reached out to the mom. And I said, hey, did you do this? And she's like, what? No, but I've been thinking about you. I wanted to book in. So she booked in, and I further explained what her daughter had been saying. But her daughter had passed away very suspiciously. And the police really rushed through the process of, ruling it as undetermined and possible suicide, which it was definitely not. And from there, my career took off as a true crime consultant. And it's just crazy. I think it was probably around a year or two after that I had gotten an audition to do a docuseries in LA for true crime investigations of suspicious deaths surrounding the rich and famous. So, which hasn't aired yet, so I can't really go into too much details about that, but it's super interesting that how the beginning of my mediumship career started out very gently around death and then progressed with suicide and then brought in murder, and then this is where I am today. So that kind of sums up the Chronicles of a Medium, a journal, of a true crime consultant, of where I started and how essential mediumship can be to cold case files. And I'm very passionate about it because I get a lot of information. Like, I'm very particular about what I watch. I don't read newspapers because the spirits will just come to me, and sometimes they forget they have to make an appointment. And so I don't want to be bombarded either by information. So I'm very choosy and cautious of what I allow into my energy and my thought, because I essentially want to help. And once they start coming, they're like very insistent with me journaling and helping them. So I like to be mindful. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little insight to the start of this series of Chronicles of a Medium and what's led me down the path. And next video that I will be posting in a few days will be about some of the experiences as a medium and what it looks like when spirits come through. And you don't need trickery, you don't need, objects. You just have to be open and with good intentions. And how to keep it in the light too is very, very important. So until next time, thank you so much for tuning in. Please like, follow, and share. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel.